Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning, 15 minutes to hopefully change your life. Heichaltzu. So we're discussing the process. We've been discussing the process of Seichel itself, Chachma and Bina, and we're discussing that it says in different places, sort of contradiction. On one hand, it says Chachma is the beginning of Yischalkus, beginning of separation and division, and in other places it says that Chachma is unity. That's what we're learning until now. So we said, really, it's not. It's in Seichel. There's different levels. There's Chachma, and then there's Bina, and in Bina is what it sort of separates. Chachma, it doesn't. And I'm talking about it, and ultimately, hopefully, probably that by then this class we'll talk about it. How there's separation that leads to unity, and then the separation that leads to division. And we want to make, of course, the one that leads to unity. Separation is not bad when it brings unity. Yeah, and so we said, and the way it works is because if you're comparing Seichel with Keser, which is Ratzon, which is a much higher level, and Ratzon is the will. That will is a very essential thing, and that's very like one. It's not even divided. Like he said, the difference between Chachma and Bina, that Chachma is like an idea, that it's a flash of an idea. It has with bittul on it, but you don't really understand it, and you don't really have those tools. And whereas Bina, it's sort of dividing it. And so Chachma is the idea of bringing together, and Bina is dividing. But we said here, and we talked about that, but as much as Bina is dividing, but it's coming from Chachma, so it keeps it in that channel. It's like understanding an idea. To understand an idea fully, you have to break it apart. And that's why it's important to be able to have open dialogue, open discussion in general. Good communication is key, because if we just have it and we don't come together and talk about things, you have to come with the Ahavas Yisroel way. We want to try to understand the other person's opinion and try to make sure to help you understand your opinion better and to really come together. So you can come and speak. Yeah, and that's essentially what we're saying here. That if you Ahavas Yisroel, if it's all my opinion and that's it, and everyone else is wrong, because that's just the division. And then sort of what we have now in like politics and things going on around the world. And in Israel, it's like, it's my opinion, I'm right and you're wrong. Besides the fact that it's not necessarily always true, like we can't both be right, but it's also a lot of the times you just lack information. And part of the discussion, that's Bina. Bina is making you understand the idea. It's like learning something, not really spending the time to go over it and really internalize it so you don't understand it. And so to the situation, people have these like I heard someone say once, this guy, he does videos. He goes around asking questions. You could submit a question, and he goes around to different areas in Israel or in Yehud and Shemron, and he asks people like Arabs or Yidden questions based off the question, and the question is asked different things. And so one of the things, he's been doing this for years. It's very interesting because you get like a inside view of what's actually going on, what people actually think. One of the things he said, they interviewed him. Like the question was about him, like what have you learned and stuff. And he said every media outlet gets it wrong. He goes whether you're pro-Israel, against Israel, whatever it is, he goes, it's all wrong. You have to come yourself. And he goes, don't come just to one place. Come and see a variety of places, and you'll see for yourself. And you'll see how wrong the media is. People think that Israel is this place that is like full of, people that are bad people trying to hurt people, and that's all they're walking around and talking about how much they want to hurt Palestinians. And people think, in Gaza, it's this place that is full of rubble and there's no houses and everyone lives in tents, and they're both, of course, wrong. And that's what we're saying here. We have to be able to come together, and that's also when we judge a person. Also, like for example, the shidduchim. You have to like an obvious thing that I think everyone knows is the resume that a person gives is not necessarily, it's not a true accurate representation. It is to a certain extent, but there's finer details you don't understand. And I see a lot. The people write things. My wife see a lot of people write things that are very either cliche or very like non-specific. And everyone has that. Everyone says, I want to be Chassidus, I want to go out for hikes, and funny. It's like, but we're not all the same. Anyway, let's learn a little bit. Top of 39. So the ultimate goal of the above analysis undertaken by Chachma and intellect is synthesis. So this, coming together, Chachma and Bina is the synthesis of it. As well known and as will be explained in the coming chapters, in general, there are two types of division. The first is division, which causes separation. For example, the division of the essential soul powers from each other. In the essence of the soul exists the potential for all the different powers of the soul, and power the soul possesses. In essence, it has everything, all the potential. Intellect, emotions, movement, and the like. As these powers emerge, they are in their essence different from each other. So in essence, like in the seed, in the drop of semen, it has within it the whole form of a body. And as it goes and it moves on and it gets and lies pregnancy and it develops, it separates into specific things. To the extent that there is no bond, connection, or point of unity between them. But here that's in the person, it's all connected, makes the body. But in the soul powers, it separates totally. For example, the quality of chesed and gevura are in essence absolutely separate and distinct from each other. Chesed is giving, gevura is not giving, and they're very opposite each other and don't really come together. If they would be revealed in their essence, they could not tolerate each other, which is like what happened in Toyo. As explained in other sources, this concept is identified by the sphere of Toyo in the higher realms. In that realm, the spheres were revealed in their simple states as they exist on the level of Akudim, which is like this level, and says on the level of Akudim, the spheres exist as a simple, undeveloped potential. They haven't been formulated. It's like an idea that we haven't really formulated. It's the level of Akudim. And where they are in Toyo, they're totally simple, and they're not, meaning they haven't even thought about something else, like a little kid. Little kid is simple. He doesn't think about anything else. Can't really get along with other people. It's hard for them to like share and stuff with it, and very simple. In the realm of Toyo, these potentials come into expression in their simple state. So the simple chesed, which means it's not chesed developed that also can take gvura, tferes, netzach, and all these things. It's just chesed by itself. Therefore, they were opposed to each other and in conflict, as explained in other sources. The second type of division, that's the first type of division, that they contradict each other and they can't get along with each other, and they're very, very simple, but in a negative. The second type of division is one that leads to synthesis. This occurs when a single entity is broken down into many different components. When the two things are in essence different, their differences are the reason for the division that later results as mentioned above. However, when one single entity is divided into many particular forms, so when you start off with separate things, then the more they express themselves, the more separate they get. However, when one single entity is divided into many particular factors, such division is for unity. But when you have one thing, the essence, being divided, that divided brings about unity. The function of Bina is to analyze and break into particulars the germ of a concept conceived by Chachma. See, Chachma, like we said before, Chachma is the point. It's one point. It's in essence, has everything. Bina separates those things. Thus, Bina involves taking a single idea and breaking it into its component parts. However, throughout the entire process of analysis, Bina is guided by the light of Chachma. So accordingly, the particular dimensions of the idea are not seen as disparate, I guess like separated points, but rather come together, enabling the person to conceive of the idea as a single whole. So even though you're learning an idea and you break it down into different parts, that breaking down doesn't separate the idea, it brings it to a greater whole. All its particulars shed light on the fundamental concept. It's like when you learn a man, you understand it well, so you say, how do I apply it to this scenario? And how do I apply it? It's like there's a rule in the Gemara. It's a way of looking at everything. I forgot what it's called now. What I was in my mind. It's basically it's chefza and gavra. Is it on the object, on the person? Like a person makes he says they're going to give a donation. Is the question is, when he says it, is he saying it about that it's his obligation for the nation, or is it on the nation itself? Let's say he says, I'm going to donate this cow. So this cow passes away. Does he still owe a donation? Or meaning, is the vow that he made on himself that he's going to bring something, or is it on the animal? And being that the animal passed away, he doesn't need to bring another thing. And you can sort of look at this in every light, in a lot of scenarios in the Gemara, you can look at every situation through this light. And there's a way of learning this way. So when you do that, that's what he's saying, even though you're taking separate different things, but you're showing the unity within them. So too, when you have the bina, which is bringing out different specific points, but it's coming from Chachma, so then those different points aren't separate things, it's just separate, but they bring together. To refer back to the analogy of the concept of a child, the seminal drop of Chachma is developed by Bina in a process similar to gestation. Ultimately, what emerges is a complete organism that is unified, that is a unified entity. So you have the child, which is separate. It came from a seed to arms, legs, head, brain, eyes, all these separate things. But those separate things are really coming together also and united. The different limbs and organs complement each other. These concepts are developed further in the coming chapters. And so you see it very, very clearly that a person needs all these separate things. You know, being just a drop of semen is nothing. It's nothing. It's unity, but it's not really, it's not a usable unity. Whereas when we come and you have a gestation and you put in the effort and you work on it and you so to speak, chew it over, and you put in all this effort, you'll produce bigger things that are separated. Suddenly you have, from one little drop, you have arms, legs, head, feet, eyes, toenails, nails, all these separate things. But those separate things, of course, as we see it, if we come together, it's all together one thing. And using all these things together, it makes us a functioning human being. And so too together, when we take all ideas, we take different opinions of people, you don't stay as that single drop, but you formulate and you pull it out and you use that bina, but it's coming from chachma, it's coming from unity. So I want to understand, because I want to connect with you. I want to find the commonalities. So then you can have a much greater thing. Summary, Kitzur. Midjan opposes the sphere of chachma, which is characterized by bittul and synthesis. And like we said before, the chachma is about the bittul, whereas midjan was all against it. So midjan is without the point. It's separated at its core. And the more he goes, the more separated it feels. Just like if we focus on Ahavas Yisroel from Tanya, if you focus on the body separated. So the more you go, the more he's separated. Whereas you focus on the neshama, which is we're all one. We all have one Father. We're all one. So then the further we go, we can spread ourselves out, but we can still connect. That's why also in Gumivtayim. If you go look at the person as a physical person that he has whatever he or she has whatever issues, then it's very difficult. But if you go from the concept that within is the neshama, so that unites us, we're all one. And therefore you can go to any person doing whatever and we can connect them. True, there is division in the realm of intellect. However, that division is primarily a function of bina and ultimately leads to synthesis. So there is a division, but it's for coming together. In general, these are two types of division. One that recognizes an entity's distinctness and its very source. For example, even as the essential powers exist in their source of the soul, they are separate entities. Therefore, as they emerge from a pre-conscious to a conscious state, the distinction between them causes a division. As in their source separated, so the more you go, the more separated you feel. This concept is exemplified with shiur tohu. By contrast, there is an approach to division that leads to a more inclusive unity. For example, Chachma sees a concept as a single integral whole. So even though it is broken down into details through a process of analysis, the division in the particular elements does not bring about fragmentation, but rather heightens the awareness of the integrity and singularity of the whole. So you find different types of Jews, but you see the unity amongst them or the oneness within them. And that's the aim. That's what we're trying to do. That we're try to see that even though you have people, different opinions, you have to look, and that's also why, let's say in Shidduchim, when you have your core values, that's so that point. Then when you see it when you see someone that has those someone that you're dating and see they have those things, then you can look at the other issues, other things that don't match up in that way. but you can figure out how it works because essentially you know your core value, and that's there, and that's when we're all united. So then you have the other things that happen. You can see how they can help. It's like I might be more shy, my wife might be more outgoing. So those two together makes this perfect unity. But the core values have to, of course, be there first. And that's like we're saying here. They have the chachma, it's coming from the right place, and then when it separates, the separation doesn't lead to division, but it leads to unity. And that's also in marriage, and coming from the right. If we have the same core values as we come out and as we express them differently, that doesn't bring discord, but it brings unity. To be continued. Have a great day, everybody.